When you witness somebody find a strength and resilience you didn't think they had, people start reaching for more and more superhuman adjectives to describe the act. But sometimes people get through their adversities with simple, everyday grit and gumption. And our guests today, husband and wife Tony and Annette Regan, have a flourishing little family in Eltham in Victoria, along with their kids Nina and Joey. They're the perfect model of a happy, modern Australian family. They're loving, they're supportive, reliable. They all think they're quite funny, and they often go and watch the footy together as a family. But they're doing it all because when tragedy struck, Annette and Tony got through it together. After losing their first child shortly after being born, Annette and Tony could have fallen in a heap, but their unexplainable strength kicked in, and they backed themselves to keep trying to start a family. And years later, they welcomed the arrival of son and daughter, Joey and Nina. And as wise adults, Annette and Tony, through their work in Victorian schools, today realise that the strength and resilience needed to deal bad hands is inside people all along. Annette worked as a student counsellor and helped students by putting herself in their shoes and giving them the advice she'd have wanted to have heard herself as a teenage high school student. And Tony, as well as being one of those super cool school teachers that kids want to be mates with, has been an Aussie rules coach most of his adult life. So he knows a thing or two about guiding young people through all sorts of challenges. And the term resilience, some might think it's overused slightly today, but it's the perfect term to sum up that unexplainable strength that's inside a lot of real human beings that helps them get through when life seems to be trying to drag them under. Tony and Annette Regan have plenty of that unexplainable strength, and they're just about to help us answer the question, why do some people flourish after tragedy while others fall in a heap? And fittingly, we'll be speaking to them both. Welcome, Annette and Tony. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thanks. Oh, yeah. And you had a big night last night, I heard.
Yeah, it was our daughter's 18th and we had family over and, it was great. We could really feel the love, couldn't we, Tony?
Yeah, no, it was great. Feel the love is a beautiful term for having a hangout, but that's lovely.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that. That's now in my vocabulary.
In my defence, I think my hangover was more to do with I didn't have a lot to eat. And, I might have had one or two glasses of champagne. But anyway, we'll move on.
Gee, can't even count between 1 and 2. So let's start with you, Annette. Let's start.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us how you and Tony met and why you thought that he was the man for you.
Oh, well, that was almost immediate, actually. So I was working as a social worker in a disability organisation up in Sydney, and our recreation officer was resigning, so our manager was interviewing for new recreation officers. Anyway, I was young and single, and our receptionist knew that if any good-looking applicants came by, were waiting to let me know so I could just nonchalantly walk by and check them out. Anyway,
that was your recreation.
That was my recreation. Anyway, I did do work, by the way. But anyway, so Rula, that was her name. She called me, and I can't remember the password now, but up I got with my coffee cup to pretend to go to the kitchen, and I politely checked him out on the way. Although years later, Tony told me I was so obvious it was embarrassing. But anyway, so when my manager came out for a break, I went up to her and I said, "Oh, Julia, don't worry, I've done the job for you. I've selected the successful candidate." And she said, "Oh, Annette, I think we might have different criteria here." So, but happily, she thought Tony would make a very good recreation officer, so he joined the team. And, it turned out his personality I found as appealing as his looks, and as they say, the rest is history. Yeah. Although, let me say, it took him a while to ask me out.
Seriously?
Yeah. Seriously. You can ask him about that.
So before you met Tony, life threw you a few wobblies. Tell us about the moments in your life that you had to find unexplainable strength to get you through.
Yeah. So I guess I had a pretty. My parents were Maltese immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the youngest of three children, two older brothers. Plus, I was really fortunate to have my godmother live with us. She was an Australian lady that my parents met when they first came to Australia. And when we moved house when I was 4 years old, she came and shared my room. You know, we shared a room. And so she was like this lovely, fairy godmother. She was just beautiful. So I had a really typical Maltese upbringing, which was a lot of food, a lot of shouting, a lot of, out there love. And then it was July the 9th of my HSC year, and we got a call that my brother Stephen, who was about 2 years older than me, and had just started speedway racing. I think it might have been, it might have even been his first race. I don't know. He slammed into a fence and broke his neck. So he became quadriplegic as a result.
No.
And then, so there was that. And then, I'd say about 6 months later, just when I finished my HSC, I met a guy and fell in love, and we were together for 4 years. And just around the time, so around the age of 22, just around the time when I thought, this is a guy I want to, settle down with, have a family with. I love him. He was coming to the conclusion that I was not the girl that I wanted to do that with. So he broke that off. But I found out when I was overseas and I was on my own, and it was quite shocking. And that was really hard to recover from. I just had no idea. Then when I was 24, my mum, who was the most beautiful, just amazing woman and mother, she was diagnosed with cancer, and 3 months after that, we lost her. So in a short period of those short years, I had, there was stuff that I, as a younger person, it just never even occurred to me that anything like that could happen to me. But it did.
How's Brother Stephen now?
Oh, he's really, well, actually, look, he's now 60, and so quadriplegics, their bodies age a lot quicker than able-bodied people.
Yeah.
So, look, we were told when it happened that the average life expectancy for a quad was around 40. So he's 60 now, and you know what? He's only just gone into a powered wheelchair. Up until then, he's been in a manual wheelchair. He's only now just stopped driving, but they've got a wheel on, like, minibus that his wife drives. He's travelled the world so many times, literally I cannot keep up. And he's been, when I say all over the world, I mean all over the world. He's worked, he still writes Speedway articles. He's doing okay. God, talk about resilience. That guy could bottle it. Let me tell you.
I'm going to throw us another curve, but how did he meet his wife?
I'm not allowed to say. It's very common way people meet, but they're very shy about talking about how they met. Yeah.
I think that's absolutely like a lot of people just, they take something that's a major hit, and then they dig a hole, and yet he's still writing about Speedway. Found himself a love and travels the world, which is not easy when you're in a wheelchair.
Yeah, and you know what? She's not his first love. Let me say. So he was 19, I was 17, and in our 20, like when he was up and rolling, we used to go out a lot together. And he's a very charming rooster, right? And there were times, like I remember one time he said to me, Annette, can you just kind of move away because everyone thinks you're my girlfriend. And as soon as I did, all these girls, he was surrounded by girls. He did okay, let me tell you. Yeah. And I'll say something else I remember about him. We were at a wedding. Again, this was after his accident. It might have been about, 3 years or so. And we were up dancing together because he used to love to dance. We used to go out and see bands together all the time. And I said to him, if you could walk tomorrow, what would be the first thing you would do? Thinking, get up and dance on his legs. And without hesitation, he said, I'd get on my bike.
Wow.
Yeah. I nearly dropped to the floor. I didn't see that one coming, but yeah.
Oh, gee. Good. Good on you, Stephen. Good on you, Stephen. So do you still consider yourself a resilient person? You still have that same resilience built in?
I wasn't resilient. I mean, look, I view resilience, I see it as a very complex thing, and I also don't see it as something that either you got or you don't have, you have or you don't have. So in my 20s, it was a real struggle for me. I did struggle with depression. And
you did?
Yes, I did. Yeah. So it kind of all came crashing down when that relationship ended. And, it was pretty bad at first. And then I would say my 20s was a real time of discovery. And even though I did suffer with depression on and off during that time, I never stopped searching. I just really, really wanted to find out, what I could. I just have this. Well, I've always had a natural curiosity about humans and the way we think, but also at times the suffering was so great that I just felt it was a life-saving thing. I had to find this answer. I couldn't. Surely life. I was in my mid-20s and I was thinking, if I live to 80, I can't live like this. So I went searching, and along the way, I learned a lot of things. I met a lot of people. I had a lot of experiences. So that, by the time our first son, Johnny, was born, I would say I'd learned a lot about resilience, and I discovered something that I think is the core of it when when something dreadful happens that's out of your control, something called radical acceptance. And
is that what pulled you out of it, the radical acceptance? When you said you had depression?
Oh, no, I think, I think I gradually learned about acceptance because I think looking back at the way I thought back then, there was an element to my thinking of this is not right. This should not have happened. Everything. My brother's accident, my mother's early, relatively young, early death. The end of my relationship. What was at the forefront was, this shouldn't be happening. This is wrong. This is not right. And I think what happened was that kind of thinking prolonged my suffering. And I learned that. So by the time Johnny happened, of course I suffered, and it was a kind of suffering like I'd never, ever, ever had before. Extremely intense. But that added layer to it wasn't there, which I'm so grateful for. I did, and also my Catholic faith as well. That was something that has stayed with me ever since I was a child, and that helped me also through my 20s and with what happened with Stephen. So I just remember that the difference being was I was, by the time our son was born, I was at a place where I could truly say, your will be done. But just please, if you're going to take our son back, please allow Tony and I to be able to have joy in our lives again one day.
Wow.
So, and maybe, if I may, I want to tell you a story of something that happened about a week after Johnny passed away that I think helps me to answer your question about resilience, because I really don't think it's a simple thing or concept. So we went to Tasmania just to get away from everything. And one day we went down to this, there was a little town in Tasmania called Richmond, a gorgeous little town.
Oh, yes. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. Anyway, just on the outskirts of Richmond is this crazy zoo called Voodoo, right?
Yeah.
And it's like a safari zoo, and you hop on these, roofless buses, and they go riding around, and you see all the big animals. Anyway, the driver was a complete nut job and was, we were being chased by camels and everyone was screaming, and he'd given us this bag of feed, and he said to us, we're going to come to the emus first, but they're going to try and grab the whole bag. Whatever you do not let them take it, because it's all you've got for the other animals. And we said, oh, okay. So we go up, and of course the emus come bounding up to us, and they stick their heads in the bus, and they just grab the whole bag of feed from our hands. No chance of holding on to them. It's one woman, and by the sound of her accent, she sounded like a German or an Austrian tourist, and she was holding on with everything. And so there was this tug of war between her and this big emu head. Anyway, it was so funny. People were literally rolling on the floor laughing. Tony, I thought Tony might die from an asthma attack. He was laughing. I was laughing. But in the middle of it all, I thought to myself, imagine if these people around looking at Tony and I laughing our guts up knew that just 4 days ago we buried our son. That it was such a surreal moment. But now, guys, this is really important. It's a little, this story's not over. What happened was we were staying at a bed and breakfast, and the lady who owned it was very, very strict. And on the first day we booked in, she goes, look, breakfast finishes at 9:30. If you're not down by then, that's it. You don't get your breakfast. So anyway, that's a fault. She was maybe a little female version. Anyway, the thing was, the day after our day at the Zudu place, I couldn't get out of bed. I was just, I couldn't. I was crying. I just couldn't face the world outside the bedroom door. But Tony went down, and he ended up talking to the lady about what we'd been through. And sometime later, there was a knock on the door, and she answered it. And I didn't even answer it. I honestly, I couldn't speak. And she came in, and she just put the breakfast tray down, and she just said, just have something to eat, love. You'll be okay, And I was so grateful, but again, I couldn't speak. I just kind of looked at her, and she left. So, I did have my moments, as I'm sure Tony will tell you he did as well. And what's more, the description of our family that you introduced the show to is not quite accurate there. We have had our ups and downs since Johnny, and even since Joey and Nina, and there was definitely a time where I would not describe myself as resilient.
Gee, that's honest.
Well, I just don't want to give an impression that is not real. And I don't even have to speak about myself. I'll never forget when I was working in a rehab place for older people. I met this woman called Nellie, and she was 92, and she was from northern England. And talk about grit. Oh, my God. She had survived the death of two husbands, but also a son from, not typhus. It just escapes me. It was one of those things we now our children inoculated against. But he was about 6 years old. And anyway, I got to know her and her story. We actually did a life story with her after I got to meet her. But the reason she was referred to me was because she'd become suddenly depressed. She'd been coming to rehab for weeks and doing really well, and was always chirpy and happy to speak. But when she was told at the age of 92, because she'd broken her hip, at the age of 92 by her orthopaedic surgeon, that she would have to have a walking frame for the rest of her life.
At the age of 92, yeah.
But she became very depressed.
Well,
very depressed. She lived with her son and his wife, and they bring her in. Her mood, like the physiotherapist noticed the big difference, and she just didn't want to live anymore. And it was the thought of having this, this frame.
Yeah.
Look, we worked really hard on that. We got through that, but I guess you could say she didn't demonstrate resilience in that regard, in that way. She eventually got through it. So, yeah, she had amazing grit. In fact, when she was doing a life story, that's how she described herself, this with grit. When I told her just how amazed I was, with what she'd lived through. So I think, we're very we're complex human beings. We're not rubber balls. I mean, if you look up resilience, I think there are some definitions that say it's the ability to bounce back. Well, a rubber ball can bounce, but we're humans, and sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. But I firmly believe each time we're in a situation where maybe we don't bounce back, it's an opportunity to learn more about ourselves and or about life.
Yeah, and it does take something special to have the awareness to go and do that rather than just falling in a heap and staying there.
Yeah.
You're very good. So in your job as a school counsellor, obviously you're helping so many young people go through challenging situations, and you're seeing that much more than all of us. What's the biggest thing you've learned from your life experiences that you think the young people today need to know?
Okay, so the first thing is you are fine exactly as you are right now, even if that, in your words, is in a fallen heap, right?
Yeah.
That you're enough, you're okay, you're absolutely enough as a human being. But we can accept ourselves as we are, and if we want, we can also strive for change. But it can take time, and sometimes, and it happens incrementally as well. So I can often see changes in young people that they themselves can't see, and their parents, because they're so desperately worried about them, can't see that it's happening fast enough. But it's one of those things where I think, like that analogy of looking at a painting, but you're right up to it, and all you can see is a blur of colours. But as the years go by, when you step back, you can see that part of the painting is actually a rich and important part of it.
Aren't you good? Oh, that's good. Oh.
But that's how I see, when I was in my teens and my boyfriend at the time broke up with me, and I was a complete mess. I was, and I actually gave a presentation to a group of Year 12 online during the first year of COVID, and I decided to share my own Year 12 story with them and how it eventually panned out. And at the end of it, one of the teachers actually asked me, if you could go back and talk to your 17-year-old self, your 20-year-old self, what would you say to her? Now, the thing about that was, up until that very moment, I would have said something like, you need to accept things in life. They happen to everyone. We can't escape suffering, that kind of really important stuff we need to know. But when I'd gone through the preparation of that presentation, it was really the first time I'd kind of gone back and looked at my life. And so in that moment when she asked me, it just came really automatically. I said to her, I would tell my 17-year-old self, you're doing well, you are so brave, and you will continue to be brave, particularly through your 20s, when it's really tough and no one really understands you, and they're telling you to snap out of it, and they're telling you, look at your brother, he's in a wheelchair, and he's getting on with his life, and look at you. You were brave, you owned your feelings, but you decided to strive and change. So I can't even remember what the original question was, Scotty, so I'm really sorry.
What's the biggest thing that you've learned from your life experiences that you think that young people need?
Oh, yeah. So I would say, So accept the way you are, right? Yes, we need to accept the things that happen to us and whatever's happened to you, or whether it's, your anxiety disorder or whatever. But you're okay. You are perfectly enough right now.
You're good. You're good. You're good.
I'm
So your
really
children,
glad you're saying that in front of Tony.
so Nina and Joey, are they resilient people, do you reckon?
I do think so. Again, preserving our privacy. I won't go into details.
No,
they've been through stuff, and I think they've managed it incredibly well. But I'll also say, there might be something that happens down the line, just like Nellie, the 92-year-old woman, that might be the one thing that they can't bounce back from without, without a journey towards coming back from that. So
that's an amazing thing, that Nellie story, because she would have been through, I would imagine, the Depression and the war and so much change and electricity being invented, sewer coming on, and all things that we take for granted now. But she's had to live through all of that, but especially the war and the Blitz and everything else. And yet being told that she had to have a walking frame was the thing that broke her.
That's right. And that's why, as a therapist, you simply cannot judge stuff like that. You have to focus on what the person in front of you is experiencing. The why is important, but it's not the most important thing. It's the suffering. Yeah.
So being a school counsellor now in a time where anxiety and depression have been increasing hugely, it's got to be a tough time. Would it be a tough time to be in that line of work, or is it still rewarding for you?
Oh, it's incredibly rewarding. Look, I wouldn't call it tough, but yeah, because I've been working in schools for about 10 years, and I would say, so when I first started, a lot of the students I was seeing were the, say, year 11 and 12 ones, where they were, around anxiety I'm talking about. The anxiety students were the year 11 and 12, coming up to the VCE anxiety. But increasingly, it was the younger students. It was the year 7 and 8. I don't know why, and this is backed up by government studies as well, but the onset of anxiety is starting earlier, and this is before COVID. Don't know why. Do not know
how
why.
do the kids say to you they've got a problem? Do they seek you out and make an appointment, come to you and say, look, I've got a problem?
No, it's normally the older students, a lot of them do, but with the younger students it will be their year level coordinator or their house leader or the parent. So it's rare for a young student, even though they're all told how to make contact with the counsellor, it's usually staff or parents.
And then you've got to approach the student 007 style.
No, we really try and make it as open as possible. So the house leader or the year level coordinator will have a chat with the student and explain why they think it's a good idea. And then when I meet with them, the first thing I tell them is this is voluntary. I'm not a teacher. You can call me Annette. You don't have to come back. So I make sure they know their rights in that regard. I also tell them that it's completely confidential. I cannot share anything they tell me with anyone, including their parents, unless I have their permission first, unless there's an issue of risk. They know that if I think that they're at risk of any harm, I can't keep that to myself. So we'll have a pretty good strike rate in terms of them coming back. And what's lovely is that, years down the track, maybe when they're year 10 or so, they'll reach out themselves and ask to come and have a chat about something that's come up for them.
And is there a success story that you're particularly proud of?
Oh, there's so many. And when you say proud of, I sincerely mean this. I'm more proud of them. There's a lot. Yeah, they're great kids. They're just. But then again, I remember, when I first started working in schools, and I knew this as a social worker anyway. That often the fruits of our work we won't get to see. So there are some students where I don't think the work was quite completed by the time they finish school. But, I have a lot of hope that, the work we did together while they were at school will just, it's just the beginning of work that would, of growth that would continue for them.
Yeah. Gee, you're good. You're good. I know Barnaby's hanging out to ask a question. And then thank you for your candour. You're really a terrific person. You're really a terrific, open, honest. You just value. Barnaby, over to you.
Thank you, Scotty.
Thanks,
I know you're hanging out.
I am hanging out. Annette, thank you for joining us. It's so refreshing to hear somebody tell young people that falling in a heap is okay. We live in such a culture of hyper success. Everybody's passionate and dreaming and believing and teaching and coaching. It's nice to say sometimes life just sucks. It's okay. You'll get through it. Let me ask you about children and the pressure on them today. Do you feel like there's too much pressure on kids today to win everything? Is trying your hardest and being proud of yourself, whether you win, lose or draw, enough anymore?
Yeah, look, can I answer this in terms of from an academic perspective? Because I've certainly noticed a shift.
Certainly.
When I first started in schools, and I've worked in a few schools, there was, I think, this kind of relentless, achieve highly at all costs. And your ATAR is the be-all and end-all of your future. That's really been pulled back big time. I think I was fortunate enough to come into schools at a time where it was seen that that was a really not helpful for mental health, let alone students' actual performance, academic performance. So I think the pressures and there's so many different pathways, and that's made very clear to students at schools now, well, certainly the schools I've worked in, that say you want to be a physiotherapist and you don't get the ATAR for it, you're told very clearly the different kinds of pathways that you can eventually get there on. Same with engineering, all sorts of things. So students are also told that success in life can involve being, a tradesman or a tradeswoman.
Yep.
So in that regard, I think that pressure's been pulled back. Where I think there is a lot of pressure is social media.
Yep.
And there's so much unrealistic stories, being told there that, there's that compare and despair element.
Yeah, true.
That's what I think is. I remember, Barnaby, when I very first started working in a school, I did some training. It was called Teen Mental Health First Aid.
Yep. And
up on the screen was a graph of the rise in suicides in younger people and over the last 5 years.
Right.
And it was quite steep. And then there was another graph on the rise of social media over the last same time period. And when they superimposed one graph over the other, it was almost identical.
Right.
So, I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. from a non-educational, educated point of view. I totally agree with you. So given all of that stuff as a parent that you see now with the impacts of social media and the depression and anxiety and hyper success, what advice do you give your own children as they get ready to go out into the real world? Your daughter just turned 18.
Yeah. Well, she's doing a VCE, and honestly, I can say this hand on heart, and I know Tony feels the same. We really are not too concerned about what ATAR she gets, right?
Yeah.
What did concern me a little bit was just about, and this was for Joey as well. So we said to them is, we want to see you put effort into it, because the good things in life don't just fall in your lap. They do when you're younger, if you're lucky enough to be born into a good family, in a good, safe society. But you're soon going to learn that you're going to have to work for what you want. And sometimes that work is going to be boring, right? But you've just got to do it. So that's what we've told them we want to see. We just want to see effort. We want to see them, do the little incidental, boring steps along the way, because really I think that's the ace in the hole for success in life. Just the willingness to work and sometimes do the boring stuff, and then everything else, I believe, will fall in place.
And that is the most perfect way to finish this interview. I think adults like to tell young people what they think they want to hear. Young people don't want to hear anything except what's good for them or what they enjoy. But sometimes you just got to do the boring, hard stuff and just put in effort. And things do work out as you have experienced in your life. Things do work out. So, Annette, thank you so much for sharing your immense wisdom with us today.
Oh, my pleasure.
And thank you for sharing your wisdom with young Australians as well over the years. But now we want to speak.
That's definitely been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette.
You're fabulous, Annette. Thank you.
Thanks, Scotty.
Now we'd like to speak to Annette's mate, Tony. Can you hear us, Tony? I'm very well, and yourself?
Yeah,
now,
going good. I was the holiday, so it's always good.
Outstanding. I was going to write a clever little introduction talking about how you face adversity every day being a Richmond Tigers fan, but that felt a little nasty, so we might just get straight into it.
It's more like being a Swans fan.
Good on you. Yeah, I'd rather make the finals and not go anywhere than not make them and be nobodies.
But it is, on that, it is, I was just thinking just recently, just a couple of days ago, it's such an exciting time, September in Melbourne and finals. It brings out the best and worst in people as well.
Well, that's a very good segue to my question for you. So Aussie rules, AFL football has always been a huge part of your life. You and I played together for the mighty Pennant Hills Demons. You've coached various youth and men's AFL teams most of your adult life, and unfortunately you're a member of the Richmond Tigers. How much of the friendships you've made in those football communities meant to you over the years?
I guess in those moments when you're playing together or coaching people, those friendships and those connections are really important, and those connections are the things that make a good team. You think about when you're playing in team sport that you've got to connect with people and be connected and all striving for a particular goal. So they're intense, I think, when you're in the moment. And then I guess as life moves on, we all sort of move on and do different things, and become fathers and or become businessmen or teachers, whatever it is. Our careers sort of take off, but you sort of lose, which I think is probably a really healthy thing. You lose contact with people, and so you lose that intensity of the connection. But what's always fun, I find, is that when you do catch up, that you fall back into that mateship fairly quickly, and that's always that's always really nice to be able to fall back into that friendships.
Very true. So there's a lot of really valuable lessons from sport before you become a grown man and lose those connections. Are there lessons you picked up from playing sport as a kid and as a younger bloke that you've taken into your work in schools to help young people deal with challenges at school or in everyday life?
I'm not really sure whether, I think, okay, I did that in sport so I can go in and to a classroom and teach students that life skill. But I think what it probably does more than anything, it shapes you as the person you are in different ways. I find people who are involved in team sports in particular tend to be able to sense other people and sense emotions and feelings, so can connect a little bit quicker with people. But I suppose that the message Annette was talking about with our own kids of hard work, and even putting in hard work doesn't mean you're going to succeed or going to get what you want, but at least put the hard work in. I think that helps. There's sort of conversations that I've had with kids over the years to get them through school, get them towards an ADAR score that they wanted to achieve, or get them sort of out of school and into the adult world as well. So I think it definitely has shaped me as a person. But I also say that teaching and being in a school also shapes the person I am as well. And very much like Annette, I'm really fortunate to go to work every day and be around young people. If I'm allowed to, I did. So I've got I've had sort of mid-management type roles, sort of roles Annette was talking about in terms of coordinating and all those things over the last 10 or 15 years. And it's really nice this year. I've actually decided to go back into just being a classroom teacher. And I shouldn't say just, because it's really important. And it's been so much joy. I really enjoyed being in the classroom a little bit more. And people are really fortunate. I had a Year 12 home this year. I let them, told them, they wanted to know what I was doing on holidays. I said, well, first I'm doing a podcast, so the 12 gold it gets recorded there. I'll give them a shout out. But being around young people is really a lucky thing.
And that's why you are one of the cool teachers at school that all the kids want to be mates with.
Some would say I'm not. Some would say I'm the grumpiest as well. But that's all part of the fun, and that's part of the connection. And I honestly, when I'm driving to school, the thing I have in my head is just it's a bit cliche, but just be the best person you can be today. And that's always a starting point. But sometimes just your patience wears thin a little bit. And sometimes it's just you always being professional and working with young people, but at the same time, I think it's also healthy to let them know that you're not happy with them right at the moment.
You're a very wise man, and I think children in schools are lucky to have both you and Annette give them guidance. What's the hardest thing you've ever had to do as a teacher?
It's a really good question, Barnes, because as I said, I've had those coordinating welfare roles in schools for a long time, but it doesn't, probably the one thing, it won't sound like much, but when you put it into perspective and sitting here listening to Annette, similar sort of lines, is that when I was working in an all-girls school, and we did have a student who was sitting the Year 12 exam, and we had this VCARS is the governing body that runs education. And years ago, if you were sick, you were given a compensation pass, or the mark really reflected the work that you'd done. But nowadays it's a little bit more challenging, and in actual fact, to get sort of compensation or assistance with marks, you actually need to sit the exam, as silly as that sounds. But anyway, we had a unfortunately, a young girl at the age of 17, her father passed away just the night before her exam. So, so to ring her up, when knowing that she was going through the grief process, to ring up and say, look, you actually have to sit the exam for a consideration to be considered. That was really hard. It doesn't sound like much, but just to ring her up, and her and her family and her brother, they were amazing. So I sort of rang her and said, look, don't have to let me don't give me an answer straight away, but unfortunately, it's probably easier to sit the exam rather than not sit the exam. But I'll support you either way. That's fine. And then she rang back and said she'd like to sit the exam, but had one request was, the request was not to wait with all the other students. So she came in with her brother, and the principal at the time, she was terrific. She actually sat in the principal's office just next to her, and all the other students went into the exam room, and then the student came and sat at the back, and then was first to leave and go home and whatnot. So there's lots of things I've dealt with over the years, but just as a thought of education wasn't that important in terms of at that moment wasn't that important to that young person's life. There was things that were a lot more important, a lot more challenging.
That is tough. Now, we spoke to Annette earlier about anxiety and depression and mental illness around young children. Do you think there's one main reason there's such an exponential rise in those things today, or is there a lot of little different things?
Definitely, listening to Annette talk about social media, I think that there is that different connection and correlation between social media and expectations and whatnot. But I think on a really positive framework is that it's also, I find young people are a lot more open to the way they feel and are more willing to actually go and seek help, which is really, really positive. I know people who I grew up with, and even people a little bit older than me, where it was really it was a sign of, it seemed to be a sign of weakness, whereas now it's a real strength for young people to be able to reach out to people like Annette.
Yeah, very true. Now, can I circle back to your family and ask you a question about your relationship with your son, Joey? Do you find there's an element of pride when Joey rushes up to you to ask you questions about footy and you guys sit down and have a really in-depth chat about team and forms and all the ins and outs of football? Is that a really proud daddy-son moment?
I must admit, I love talking to both my kids, both Joey and Nina, so I can't have one better than the
Good
other.
answer.
That's really important. And we do have different conversations. I do have different conversations with them about different things. I also love talking footy with Nina as well. It's a different insight, so it's always great. But I think my son has a really good footy brain. So he's and he loves all his stats. I was fortunate enough to be involved in a PAC under-18 competition a couple of years ago, and Joey was probably around about 10 or 11, and he came along one day. Next thing, he was sitting in the coach's box helping out with the stats, and he finished up doing it for the rest of the year. He had that. Yeah, at a young age, that was a great experience for him. It's great to chat about footy, and I think it's the footy and sport gives me a chance to connect. But then, if there's something else that I wanted to talk to him about his life or something that's happening within the world, I can take that further, and the footy just provides a connection. It's really nice. Just it's really nice just to be able to chat with them at 19 and 18. It sort of only dawned on me this year. I go to the footy with a good friend of mine who I worked with. He's a teacher as well. He's got young boys, so they haven't started primary school yet. And he said to me, just this year, you've done something right, because at 18 and 19 they still would have come to footy with you. So and that was a nice insight.
Very true. So what do you and Nina talk about when you're sitting down having daddy-daughter chats?
Just how long Mum talks. No. Oh, what do we talk about? Nina has a great social justice mindset and political mindset as well. So, yeah, we talk about that. We talk about actually having. I used to work at the school that Nina is finishing up at soon. So we probably talk about her school and talk about the school more than anything, and how her friends are interacting with different teachers and how she's interacting with her friends. So yeah, they're always. And I think that's our kids have been a bit lucky. They probably wouldn't say it, but I think they've been pretty lucky to have parents at schools to help them, walk their way through different issues and whatnot. So, yeah. And to let them know some things aren't as important as others, and there might be reasons why decisions are made within schools. So, yeah.
Very true. Tony, I think you and your wife, Annette, and your children are very, really good, no-nonsense, modern-day Australians who just tell it as it is, realise that bad stuff happens, get through it together. One other person that's exactly the same as that is my co-host, Scott Gibbons, a real no-nonsense human being. I'm going to throw you over to him to ask a few more questions. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, man. Good on you.
Geez, you're an interesting fella, Tony. You're very, very interesting. You tell it like it is. I love that laugh. It's good.
Oh, no worries.
So why did you end up going to Sydney to play football for Pennant Hills?
Oh, that's a really good story, actually. It's a long story. So it was the early 1990s in Melbourne, and it was. I felt like, looking back now, it was like a depression in Melbourne. There was no work. I'd sort of come out of uni at the wrong time, and we were fortunate at that time. My mum and dad had beach house down at Flegary, and a friend of mine, Danny Ryan, who had played footy with at Old Bradians, we were. Danny was working at a bar. He was out of work as well. I think I was doing just little bits of jobs here and there, and had decided to was planning to go overseas in 1992. And we were actually down at the beach house, and this little advertisement in the local Age came up about a football club willing to find you a job and come up and play footy in the Sydney Footy League. So,
win-win.
Yeah. So Danny took off. So Danny rang and took off. So he went before I did. As I said, I'd actually planned a trip overseas. Working, typical sort of young Australian thing to do, to go overseas, which was
backpacker.
Backpacker. Yeah. So that was fantastic. I'm really glad I did that. And then got back and finished up. I actually got a job before I got a job working where Annette was working. I was working with people with intellectual disabilities, so running programs there. And then, so I actually I'd struggled to get an interview for more than 12 months before when I got back. I had 3 interviews in a week. So I had one interview with Queensland Tennis, which I actually ended up not doing. I had an interview with Cricket Victoria. Got interviewed by Bill Laurie, so it was great. I remember thinking, I just so wanted that job, but didn't get it. But I was like, okay. And then I got the job that I didn't sort of really want. I got the job up in Sydney, but Annette reminds me that led to her and I meeting. So
that was the win-win again.
That was the win. Yeah. But it was, and in actual fact, it was like I was still travelling when I first got up to Sydney. So I had travelled around the world and backpacked and got back home. But within, I think, maybe a month or 2 months, I was moving up to Sydney and going to something new and meeting new people and finding a lot about myself, but also discovering a new city and whatnot. So it was really exciting. The first couple of years I was there. It was a great place.
In that discovery as a young kid, how old were you?
So I was 24.
24?
Yeah.
Not so much a young kid, but
no.
So moving into Sydney from Victoria, but what was that like? You had a different sort of ethic up here. Different people are different. You're from Victoria, so that's different again. And then you've got to try and find a place to live and find your way around. And how hard was that?
It's funny you should ask, because I don't know why. I was just thinking about it yesterday. I think I had to go somewhere and I checked on Google Maps. And I was thinking about the time that I got so lost when I was up in Sydney. I was supposed to a friend of ours that they were living in the northern beaches, and they invited me out for lunch. And I'm not sure how. I'd probably been in Sydney for about a month. I think I was like 2.5 hours late for lunch and walked in. I nearly walked in and cried because I was by myself and then just like I had no idea where I was. And whatnot. So
that was the pre-Google days.
Yeah, I was just thinking, oh my God, life would have been so much easier if I had Google back then. But yeah, no, it was really fortunate to go to Pennant Hills. I got looked after initially by Danny and a teammate who's very popular at the footy club, John Racky, otherwise known as the Hound Dog. I was actually wasn't living too close to the footy club, but I'd come up on weekends and they would put me up. I'd stay at the place where they were renting and whatnot. So, but then,
you weren't living near the footy club?
No, I wasn't. No, at the time, no, I wasn't. Later on, I did move up close to the footy club. So I'd sort of spend the week at work, living close to where I work, and then I couldn't wait on Friday afternoons to jump in the car and head up towards sort of Pennant Hills. I met great people, and it was really fortunate.
And then you got to coach some players who went on to be really good AFL footballers, like Lenny Hayes and Mark McVeigh and Ray Hall. Do you take any credit for making them as good as they are as being AFL players?
To be really honest, none whatsoever. So I had them for a short period of time. They were 16 and 15 years of age at the time. So they were really young people. More importantly is that when they came down and I was able to bump into them at different points later on in their adult life, but they were always happy to see me. That was really nice.
If you've left a good impression, then that's nice, eh?
Yeah. I suppose there was one thing I did used to enjoy. Lenny was dominating at the time when he was 16. It was an under-18 competition, and I would, if we were winning by a lot, I'd take Lenny off. And then one day I thought, I wanted to challenge him a little bit more, so I actually put him in the ruck. He wasn't a ruckman, but I put him in the ruck, and away he went. I remember his mum came up and said, "Oh, that was great that you did that. It was good for him to do something different." And then later on, when he was playing St. there was the rule doesn't exist anymore, which is probably good. They used to allow a third man up, so you could come. It would be the two ruckmen would go for a contest, but then another ruck rover or midfielder would come over the top. Was able to do that. So they don't do it anymore. And Lenny would often do that when he was playing. I was just thinking to myself, I was the first one to make him become a ruck. But no, I take no credit for it.
We can say no. We can say yes.
Yeah.
So what about you now? Are you doing any sport for yourself? What are you doing?
Scotty, I'm 55, and I've been really fortunate when we moved to Eltham. I went for a run, and I sort of finished playing footy, but I still like to keep pretty fit. So I went for a run and found and discovered sort of a quintessential place to play cricket. It was a bushland setting with a beautiful cricket oval and whatnot. So started playing cricket there for a little bit, and then stopped. I actually stopped when we had Johnny and working through that. But then Joey sort of took a liking to cricket, so I took him down, and Joey and I have been playing cricket probably for the last 8 years together. So we've played 4 for 11 together. We've won a premiership together in third. The last couple of years, our club's been struggling, and in actual fact, they were struggling that much that I played second with Joey. And now I think we've decided last year Joey was on schoolies, and I rang him. He wasn't going to play, and I rang him up and said, "Oh, when you come back, do you reckon you could play?" I must have got him at a good moment. He said, "Yeah, no worries. I'll play." And I said, I'm also playing the ones as well. So when he came back, he replaced me in the ones, which was great. So I went back to the second, so he finished playing. Anyway, we've made a yes, that's right. Yeah, but we've made a commitment to each other to try and play first together. So we would have played fourth, third, second, and if it works out this year, first together.
I'm cheering you on already.
Yeah. So I'm actually doing cricket pre-season. I've never done a cricket pre-season in my life. So.
So do you feel that you're still soaking up wisdom from your teammates, or are you just passing on the wisdom?
I think you I talk about this in the classroom as well, that you learn from each other as much as someone telling you what to do and how to do it. I think that's a really, I like to think I'm really open to that. That I'm not sure if I've got a lot of wisdom. Possibly I do have, and that's just through life experience. That's just getting older.
Got a lot of shyness, I can tell you that. Like you've got the wisdom and you've got the talent, and even in cricket you've got the runs on the board. So you've earned the glory. You can wear the belt.
Yeah, but
I feel good.
Yeah, I guess so. But you still learn from each other, and I really even last week I had the opportunity to say to we've got a new coach, but I played with him before, and he was hitting the ball to me and whatnot. And at the end, I just said, "Look, I'm still keen to play one. Just let him." And he did exactly what you did, Scott. He just laughed, and then he saw my face and he realised I was being serious.
I think it's your delivery.
So the next week, we were batting in the net. We had an indoor session, and he spent a bit of time with me and corrected the technique. So just shows you're never too old.
Isn't that terrific?
That is good.
The coach teaches the coach. That's good.
Yeah.
So is there an overemphasis today on winning for young people in today's world, do you reckon?
That's a really tricky question, because you could argue that there's not, and then people or young people haven't the experience of striving to win. Then people give up a little bit easier. That could be a train of thought.
Is that because the kids are taught today to receive something even though they haven't won? They get a participation medal or something?
Yeah, I guess, I did that, I think, when Joey was playing sports, that really encouraged all kids to be involved. So I think that's at a junior level, I think that's really important. That doesn't bother me too much. I do hear people say, they've got a medal for participating or whatnot. I think that's just really important, just to encourage kids just to be active.
That's true. Yeah, that's very valid.
So that doesn't bother me too much. But I think it's okay to try and win.
It is all right, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. And if it doesn't work out, that's just the life experience that you get. And then I want to try and win next season, or we have to work a bit harder. I like the idea of trying to win. I think that makes it fun.
Yeah, if people weren't trying to win, it'd be a lousy TV season too, wouldn't it? So what's the proudest thing that you can say about your family that you've got alongside you today? What's the praising moment that you can talk about your family?
I guess that we're connected. We don't always get along. We try to be a good family, and we look out for each other. I think that's it's in its simplistic form. That's a really nice thing. I love seeing my kids connecting with other people, and we had a super over last night. I love seeing Joey and Nina talking to elderly people and then talking to their cousins and being good, more important. I'm really proud when they're really good people.
Yeah, connected. That's a beautiful word when you're talking about family. You're not just talking about electronics and whatnot, but you as a family can connect. And when you said that the kids talk to each other, talk to older people, talk to you, you talk to them, that's the whole spirit, is that there is communication where you are connected to communicate.
Yeah, it is. It's funny. I have thought about this. So I know when I was growing up, we were mum and dad found me on the Western District's post. It was like a place called Colac and Camperdown and South Currumbee. And we would all get in the car and drive out, so we're connected. but I don't think by the time we got to the end of the trip, I think we were disconnected because we were all forced together. So it's funny how life is. But I do notice, and I reckon I'm the worst at it in our family, is technology has impacted massively, positively and negatively. But I've noticed that, in the past, we would have sat down together and watched something together, but now I'll jump on my laptop and watch AFL 360 while Nina and Annette are watching, dare I say, Gogglebox, watch TV. And then Joey might be doing something else on his laptop. So we are actually disconnected, even though we're within within our own household. So, and then I will be conscious of that. So the one thing we do is we make sure we try and have dinner together as much as we can. So that's just a simple but really important point.
I think that's a rule. And you've played the game right through to the end. I've got to say thank you to you. Thank you to Annette. Thanks, Annette, so much. You've just been, you and Tony are just terrific for sharing your stories with us. We've also got to thank you for helping so many others, whether they've been able-bodied or mentally challenged or whatever it be, that you've helped so many in their life and their careers. You're just beautiful people. You're beautiful people.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Annette.
Thanks, Barnes. And well done to you guys and what you're doing as well. So keep up the good work.
All right. And we also have a sponsor we've got to thank, which is the fabulous ARA Group. And they've been our major sponsor, Tony, for 6 years in a row. So, and we've got to thank everybody who's been listening today, because thank you. Without you, then our job's not being done. You're the ones that we're doing it for. So we hope that we've helped make you proud of just being an everyday Joe or Joanne Baker Donuts. And you can listen to Everyday Greatness next week. We'll be speaking to Matt Cronin, who's a father who founded a foundation to end the coward punch after his son Pat was killed from that very act. So we hope you can join us. But if you want to find out more, then just go to the Everyday Greatness page at www.barnabyhowarth, HOWARTH.com.au, barnabyhowarth.com.au, or you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or LinkedIn. But again, thanks for listening in today, and thank you to Tony and Annette. You just make things real. You're beautiful people.
Thank you, Regan. It was fun.
Yeah, from Barnes and myself, we thank you so much. And you're just great people, and continue looking after those kids of yours, because they're lucky people to have you too.
Oh, no, thanks, Scotty. It's an interesting connection, because we talk about the word connection, but I actually taught Emma, Matt's daughter as well, so who's following after the episode. So that's funny how everything sort of connects.
Seriously.
Yes.
Wow. Small world.
Good on you guys.
Thanks, Regan.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, guys.